Hello, welcome back. So I'm going to be doing a bit of a chatty video today. I actually haven't caught up on any of this since Mabel was born. So I am actually going to do my labour and birth story. So obviously a very chatty video, and Mabel is 8 months old now. I do sort of vividly remember everything. I've got it written down on my notes and I do have my labour notes back. So hopefully I'm not going to miss out on anything. Now Mabel is actually a due date baby. We were sort of given the 18th of January throughout all of our scans. So we did have a scan at 6 weeks. So I just wanted that scan for a bit of reassurance that obviously everything was okay. Obviously to confirm the pregnancy, you do get confirmed the pregnancy throughout your pregnancy test, but I just wasn't really happy with that. And it's just such a nervous feeling when you've got that positive test. You just want to see that everything is okay. Because obviously your NHS scan isn't until 12 weeks, so that's 3 months pregnant already. And my pregnancy test was already saying that I was about 5 weeks pregnant. So we did that. So yeah, on that scan, that was obviously private. I'm pretty sure we had the 20th of January as a due date. We then went to our NHS one at 12 weeks and we were given the 18th of January. So this didn't change from this point on. I did have a private blood test because they weren't able to do, I think it might be called screening now, but weren't able to do that because the way that Mabel was laying. I did have to go up and try and get her to move, but she just wouldn't move. So I did that private blood test, and this is actually how I found out that she was a girl. So we gave that to my friend, because on the NHS now you're not actually able to get it in an envelope, so they either tell you at that scan or they don't. So luckily the blood test was correct. We had a few growth scans as she was showing up tiny, and then obviously she was here. So I'm going to start with, so her due date is actually 18th of January and she was born on the 18th of January. Now so that was a Thursday. On the Tuesday, so Tuesday the 16th of January, I was literally like constantly doing exercises. Now obviously the week before as well, I was just cleaning the house, just getting everything prepared. They do say that you get this like cleaning instinct when you're about to go into labour, and that's just to prepare you for it all. And I wanted to be so prepared for when she got here, so we didn't have to have like any washing, the bed didn't need changing, all of them bits, because that's so much added extra pressure that you don't need. So on Tuesday the 16th of January, I did lots of bouncing on the ball, so I was probably on the ball for a good time during that day. Bouncing on the ball, like figures of 8, just constantly moving my hips back and forth, trying to soften up my cervix. And Ben actually went out to get me some pineapple as well. Now, I only like pineapple on pizza, and I'm not actually a fan of just eating pineapple chunks like that, but I managed to have 2 of them. Again, this is all sort of like myths, if it is real or not. Does it work, does it not, I don't know, but obviously something worked for me. A lot of curb walking, so I did go out on like 3 walks that day. If you're not sure what curb walking is, it's where you've got 1 foot on the curb, 1 foot on the road, and you're sort of going like this with your feet. Now again, that is to try and soften up your cervix, so I did do that. Yeah, so just lots of exercising. Pineapple, I'm not sure that I actually tried like a hot curry, because apparently that is another thing that can try and induce you into labour. Bouncing, curb walking, pineapple, just keeping very, very active, like keeping my mind active, not just sitting on the sofa lounging around. I was doing a lot to just get my energy going. So then on Wednesday the 17th of January, I woke up at about 4 a.m. Now, I didn't wake up like myself, the pains that woke me up. So I had really intense period pains, and I did then wake up Ben up, and I sort of said, obviously as women, we know what our period pains feel like. Obviously I'm pregnant, I'm not going to be having periods, and I knew that this was sort of a bit more of an intense pain rather than a period pain, but it did feel like a period pain, but just a very intense one. Now, we started timing these, so they did keep coming like every 5 minutes, so they weren't very close together at the moment. And we are actually like a 20-minute drive we're sort of in the middle of 2 hospitals, so either way we had to drive 20 minutes. So that was in the back of my head, panicking, I don't want to have a baby in the car sort of thing. And obviously first babies, they do say that you can, like it goes on for ages, labour sometimes, or it can be really quick. Like it honestly just depends on your body. So I did call up triage and just checked that, like, can I come in, just to confirm that this is slow labour. And obviously I wanted to see how many centimetres I was, because on the phone you're obviously saying about timing the contractions and all of that, how long they're lasting. So they did say come in. So we got to the hospital at 5:10 a.m. on Wednesday morning. I had it confirmed that I was in early labour, so like slow labour really. I was given like a stronger painkiller to take because I did take paracetamol and they didn't seem to really hit the point. So we was on our way home at 6:30 a.m. and then just started labouring at home. So they said, like, go home, run a hot bath, all of these little remedies. So we did do all of that. And then I got out the bath and I actually started to lose my mucus plug. So if you're not sure what that is, it's just like gross, but a mucus plug that's just sat in your cervix and that starts to break away. Now that can break away literally like any time in your pregnancy really, but I didn't notice that any of mine had come out. So it started to come out, and when there's like it's called a bloody show as well. So when there's like a bloody show, it is signs of labour. Obviously I knew that I was already in slow labour, but yeah, we got that bloody show too. So then, yeah, I've just stayed at home. I wasn't really being too active. I was on the ball and I could just, that was a little bit like relieving the pain, but again, still in very much pain. We were also timing them. Sometimes they'd go like 5 minutes or sometimes they'd 3 minutes. So they weren't really regular yet. So I did start to get in a lot more pain, and the contractions I was having then 3 and 10 minutes, which is what you're supposed to do. And that was what our midwife had said, because obviously we are 20 minutes from either hospital. Wait until you get 3 and 10, not 4 and 10. So we did go back to the hospital at 7 p.m. that night, and then I was examined by the midwife and I was only 2 centimetres dilated. So she gave me a stretch and sweep. So if you're not sure what that is, that's where the midwife will go up with her hand and sweep around your cervix, and that's how they can tell like how many centimetres dilated you are, and that is to try and soften the cervix as well and trying to like break that. So I had another like one of their strong painkillers, and then she did say to me, most women for their first babies, they sort of go 0.5 centimetre every hour. So she said you are probably going to be back here in 4 hours, and then obviously you'll be 4 centimetres. So I remember I did get my mum and dad round for Bella, because obviously it's 7 o'clock, sort of that wind down time for us all. I didn't know if I was coming back home or going, so we did try and get a McDonald's on home. I did try and eat, but honestly I just couldn't like hack it. So we did get home at 9:30 that night. Again, just labouring at home. I didn't sleep at all, because you can't sleep when you've literally got these pains coming every 5 minutes. So obviously I had started that from the 4 a.m, it's now 9:30 p.m, and I haven't had a rest. So it was then Thursday the 18th of January, and we called the hospital door back and they said come in. So I sort of knew that this was it now, we're not going to come home without a baby. So we got back at the hospital at 1 a.m, and then at 1:45 a.m. I was examined again and I was 4 centimetres dilated. So when you're 4 centimetres dilated now, you then go onto the labour ward. You don't go onto labour ward as soon as you're in labour, you have to be 4 centimetres. So we got onto the labour ward at 2:15 a.m. and they did, while we were walking down, they did say to me like, is there any painkillers that you want? And I literally just said, just give me anything, because at this point I'd nearly been doing it for 24 hours and I was literally just like, I just need this pain to go. So at 3 a.m. I had the epidural, and the epidural, they did sort of struggle to get it in because I was so tensed up. Like, obviously you're in pain, you're contracting while you're getting this epidural, and all that was going through my head was don't move, don't move, don't move. But obviously it's so hard when you've got that pain of contraction. So I was holding, like, obviously you leant over the bed for the epidural, so I was holding Ben with one arm, midwife with the other, and when you had a contraction you'd be on the gas and air. And obviously you'd have to tell them because they'd have to stop. So they did try and struggle to get that in, but it was in. So you also have a button that you can top up the epidural if needed, like every half an hour I think it was. So we did that. And then at 5:30 a.m. I was still 4 centimetres. So they did break my waters, the midwives. And obviously I didn't feel that because you're completely numb from like waist down. And then obviously I was starving as well. I hadn't really eaten much, but they tell you not to be able to eat with the epidural because of the acid. So I had an acid tablet at 8 a.m. because I wasn't able to eat with the epidural. And then obviously they did have like the heart rate monitors for baby on my tummy. And they couldn't actually get like a proper reading. So they did have to like go up me and put a monitor, like a heart rate monitor, on Mabel's head. So that was obviously hanging out as well. And then, so that was at 8 a.m. So had to have that fitted so obviously they'd be able to monitor. And then at 11:30 a.m. I was examined again and I was actually 10 centimetres. So in 5 hours, 6 hours, I had jumped from 4 centimetres to 10 centimetres. Obviously, I was having pains during this time, but again, I was topping up the epidural. I did forget sometimes, as I was able to relax a little bit once that epidural was in because it did stop my pain. Obviously, not completely stop the pain, but once I'd forgot to press the button, my pain was coming back. So when you have the epidural, you have to wait an hour to be able to push. So once you're 10 centimetres, so I was 10 centimetres at 11:30 and I wasn't able to push until 12:30 p.m. And the reason for this is because then you can sort of feel your contractions more and then you know when to push. So you obviously push on a contraction. So I was pushing from 12:30 to 1:30. They could see Mabel's head because they always said to me, like, we can see how much hair she has. But there was just nothing, she wasn't coming through that cervix. So she was coming down, but just wouldn't come back out. No matter how hard I pushed, I literally felt like to the point where I was going red and my head was going to explode. Like, because you're holding your breath and I just couldn't do it anymore. So at 1:30 p.m. in the afternoon, they got the doctor in as there was literally just no movement with my pushing. So the doctor did say, obviously we had a bit of a chat and she said, so Mabel's heart rate was dropping every time I was contracting as well and pushing because obviously I'm squeezing and that's squeezing her head. So it was a little bit, not an emergency, but we needed to get her out pretty quick. And the one thing that we were sort of against, just because I didn't want her to be scarred at all, was forceps, but they said that was the safest way to get her out. We did obviously inquire about just a C-section, but because she was already down in my cervix, they'd have to sort of push her back up to then get her out of my tummy, so it wasn't the safest way to get her out. So obviously as I'd had the epidural, I was able to stay in the labour room. If I didn't have that, then I would have had to go to theatre. Luckily, yeah, I was able to stay in the theatre room, but there was like probably about 10 people that had come in, like a paediatrician, all different people just in case that needed for when Mabel was out. So I did then have a numbing injection down in that area, and then obviously all doctors, all equipment, everything was just around me. There was probably about 10 people in the room, so it was very overwhelming. And obviously I had Ben by my side on this side and then a midwife here. So we started that. So it was forceps time. So obviously if you're not sure what forceps is, it's something that claps like this together, and that was round Mabel's head. So the doctor was pulling while I was pushing. Now it probably only took like 2 attempts to get them out, but I did have to have an episiotomy as well. An episiotomy is where they had to use scissors just to cut me down there, just to be able to get her out quicker. And obviously because of the forceps, it's a bit of a tug with it as well, so she's going to come out quick, so it probably would have torn me anyway. So that was probably the longest part after she was actually delivered. So Mabel was actually delivered at 9 minutes past 2 p.m. So obviously I'd gone from the Wednesday morning at 4 a.m. all the way until like 2 p.m. on the Thursday afternoon. So after Mabel was delivered, she was laid on my chest, and she was laid there probably for a good hour while the doctor was stitching me up, because I had torn inside and obviously had that episiotomy, so there was a lot of stitches to do. I did sort of have my eyes shut the whole time. Ben obviously watched the whole thing, but I couldn't have watched it, I don't think, because it's just such a rush with everyone coming in, signing the consent form, and then telling you to do forceps. We didn't really want forceps, but obviously then you've got this like baby just put on you, and it's just so overwhelming. So that was all sort of done by 3:15. So at 3:15, I then FaceTimed the family, obviously showed them like Mabel and stuff. And I think because she was a forceps baby, so she did have like an assisted delivery, we then was moved at 7:30 p.m. to a different room. Now this was like a sort of a divided room. It was just with one lady that had come in for her for being induced, and then it was literally me and Ben the other side. Now Ben was able to stay as well, which we were so lucky with. There was like a sofa, obviously not comfy for him, but we stayed. And then luckily Ben went out to get dinner, so we just literally had time as a family, and then Ben went out. I think he got us a KFC and then brought it back in. Obviously we did want to get home as well, so we were just waiting for the nurses to be able to tell us that we could go home. So on Friday the 19th of January at 2 a.m, Mabel had her checks done. So they do this like checking obviously the heart rate, the eyes, the ears, like her reflex, just all of that. And then at 2:30 a.m, we were actually discharged from the hospital, and then we arrived home at 3:30 a.m. So we then had our family over during later that day, because we did have our first like health visitor, midwife come round. But yeah, it was just it was a long process, a long delivery and labour, but obviously she got here safely. And now, honestly, you wouldn't even know about the forceps. She had like a dot here, which I don't really think she has anymore. And then she did have a really marked like bloodshot eye. Now that actually did last probably about 6 to 8 weeks, but it's completely gone now. And I don't think, like, obviously we were asking questions to midwives, doctors, and I don't think that it has affected her eyesight at all. And then she did have like a bit of a bulge on her head, where obviously she got stuck in the cervix, and she was just in that same position for a while. But now, yeah, absolutely gone. Like, you wouldn't even know. And obviously, if I needed forceps, then it needed to come like, and be here the safest way. So I'm just so glad that everything happened and we were able to get home just in that time, to be able to go into bed, get some rest, get some sleep. And then my mum and dad had Bella, so Bella was brought over to us in the afternoon, just so then obviously we could have a few hours, our little family time, and obviously Bella here as well. And then we had our like parents and sisters, brothers over in the evening to come and meet her. And then obviously now 8 months later, and you wouldn't even know that, like, you just fit into mum life so easily now. Like, every day it's just obviously different but the same. But yeah, the way that you just sort of slot into parenthood is crazy, because obviously when baby's here, you're kind of a bit like, I was so overwhelmed bringing her home. And obviously you're sort of just given this thing, and it's like, right, here you go, take them home and off you go sort of thing. And obviously you have your health checks, your health visitors, all of that, but nothing really from 6 weeks. Your health visitor isn't here anymore. And then triage, you obviously get discharged from triage, so you haven't really got that help. Obviously there's been support elsewhere, so we're obviously really grateful for that. But yeah, now she's sleeping here, so she's having her first little nap of the day. But I obviously would definitely do it 1,000 times over, forceps again if needed. Ben sort of said next time we should just do a C-section, but obviously that's just like a bigger scar, bigger recovery, but we shall see what hits us when it comes. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this one. I'm going to try and do a bit of a vlog style for next video, and we are off to Gulliver's Land tomorrow, so I'm going to try and record that, but we'll see. And I will see you in the next one.